Hello everyone and welcome back to another Sims video. It's the beginning of the month, which means it is our Altman Legacy update, the current household that I play with off camera. So last time we left off with a bit of a meddling cliffhanger, where we told our friend Aubrey to just get with our mutual friend Giovanna. We know something has been there for years. They're adults. They should do something about it. Well, it worked and now they're dating. And speaking of dating, it looks like little Aubrey, our Aubrey, found love too on Love Day, and it looks like it's with her childhood friend Spencer. And of course, on the most romantic holiday of the year, Alyssa and Lexi finally got to have the wedding they dreamed of, surrounded by those they love most. And would it be an Altman event without everyone being dressed to the nines? I didn't think so. Next on the list of things was, because the Sims aging system is whack, and mine is edited to be even wackier, is a trainload of birthdays to pass through the station. First up, we've got the youngest, aging up into a child, with the adventurous trait. So I made it a bit known with her appearance, and this was done with adult supervision, of course. And directly after that, we've got the twins aging up into teens. What's teendom without a bit of drama? Turns out both of the boys wound up hardcore crushing on the same girl. Yikes. What's the best way to deal with this, you may ask? No one gets her. Ain't trying to see marriages and relationships fall apart years down the road. No siree. However, as everyone is aged up, that means time is passing, and so aged up Aubrey as well, into a young adult. Shortly after she aged up, we aged up Spencer as well, and then in what seems like record time, it was also time for Elizabeth to age up as well. Again. Alright, being the romantics they are, Spencer and Aubrey went to the city to check out the neighborhood that they'd be moving to. And as they strolled through the park, Aubrey dropped to one knee and asked Spencer to marry her. And of course, he said yes. And he said yes to something else, but we don't need to get into that because preschool toys are present. As they were newly engaged and ready to take on the world, they moved into an apartment in the city and adopted a puppy of their own, little Mateo, the bulldog. Small dog for a small apartment seemed right until you realize they have to carry the puppy up and down and up and down and up and down for potty time. A little time had passed, they got their jobs and saved up their money and got married in the same place Aubrey's parents renewed their vows. And you remember that thing I said we didn't need to talk about? Well, I lied. We do need to talk about it because it resulted in a baby. Mateo aged up and we found out that the newly married Roswells were having a baby boy. Okay, so I did some digging in Spencer's family tree and noticed that he had a lot of loss in his life. His father, the mayor of Strangerville, actually died pretty early in my save, and so did his brother. So I decided to keep the name after the members lost in the Roswell family, Theodore. Before we leave this family for the next, we aged up little Teddy into a talkative toddler. Perfect time to leave if I don't say so myself. Just kidding. One last thing. Spencer really never wanted a life in the city, so they talked it over, and with his inheritance, moved into this lovely house in Solani. The way I'm working through the story is I wanted to send off each child with a little bit of their own story, because I just want them to be happy while I ditch them for my favorite. Just kidding. Kind of. Anyway. But next down the line we move on to Jacob, who found love with Brielle Beda. Beda? Sadly, they found out even though they wanted to have a family, Brielle had extremely low fertility. So if they wanted a family, they were going to have to use different means. And different means they did. With a couple rounds of IVF, they were pregnant, and due to her medical history and reasons behind her infertility, they opted for a C-section. With his parents getting older, Jacob wanted to honor his parents with the name of their child. Once they found out they were having a girl, they chose to name her Alexia. Although they never really thought marriage was in the cards for them, they really ended up falling more and more for each other, and spontaneously, Jacob proposed to Brielle after we got home from a trip visiting family. No, honestly, it was autonomous. I didn't do it. As little Alexia enters the world, we move on to the next story. Carter. Although unflirty, doesn't mean Carter wants to be alone. He always wanted a wife and kids, just never really agreed or longed for the whole romantic side of things. While looking for a place to move out to, he stumbled upon an ad for a roommate, and that's where he found her, the woman of his dreams, Natalia. Except, he didn't know that yet. In passing conversations, they both realized they wanted a family, but just couldn't find the right people that would understand them. Carter wanting a family without a romantic relationship, and Natalia wanting a family, but not being able to carry children due to being a trans woman. They began to decide the possibilities of co-parenting and both agreed. It has always been extremely important to Natalia that her children be in some way biologically related to both her and Carter. Just a childhood fantasy of hers. Wanting to be a mother and all. So she went to her sister Ruth and asked her to not only be a surrogate, but to be the egg donor, and of course she agreed. With IVF, you always do more, hoping for the best outcome, and due to that, Ruth ended up carrying twins for Natalia and Carter. Still funny how twins are running in this family, whether we like it or not. Due to the British-feeling town that they live in, and the house that they live in, they had a boy and a girl that I decided to name Rory and Ginny, respectively. And here we slide into our final story, the one that I choose to carry on with, the Altman Legacy, Elizabeth Altman, who sadly aged up to find out she was infertile. Or so the story starts out. The Sims does not like conflicting mods, I guess. While we were away, Elizabeth, now going by Liz, became a sports star, just like her mother, and through sports met Darren Castillo, with who she became immediately infatuated with. They went to prom together, and as young teens do, they did the thing we don't talk about in front of the preschool toys. And remember how the game said that she was infertile? Well, by a stroke of luck. Can it be called luck if it's at the end of her teenhood? Either way, she fell pregnant. Scared because she was still a teen, but ecstatic because the dream that she left behind years ago, because she never thought it would come true, came true. But good news, it was the end of her teenhood, so she aged up into a young adult and immediately moved into Evergreen Harbor with Darian. And although a bit rushed, the more time they spent with each other, the harder they fell. Liz wanted to get engaged, so she did. After a date at their local bar, she proposed. And although it was Liz that wanted to get engaged, soon the passion began to spread, because almost directly after the proposal, it was Darian who wanted to get married. And then, of course, soon after, Liz got that want as well. When I tell you they were made for each other. A little while later, they went for a sonogram and found out they were having a little girl. They wanted something angelic because they never thought in their wildest dreams that this would happen. But they also wanted to honor Darian's Hispanic heritage, so they agreed on the name Ariel. Because they were both head over heels and wanted the best for their baby, they got married while still pregnant. Again, in the same place Liz's parents renewed their vows. Is this a sign of sentimentality, or am I just too lazy to make a second wedding venue? The world may never know. And like clockwork, as soon as they returned home, Liz's water broke. They rushed off to the hospital before the ink on the marriage certificate could even dry, and had little baby Ariel. Darian was in love with her at first sight, and so much so he wanted to test their luck and try again. But sadly, the well had run dry, and so had their chances for another baby. And when it rains, it pours. Soon after finding out that they could no longer carry their own children, we got the phone call that Alyssa had passed away. We went to the funeral to honor our late mother. We came back, and it was time to age up Ariel. She aged up with the imagination developmental delay, which is, of course, scary, but her parents will be there to help her every step of the way. After losing her mother and knowing how important family is to both her and her husband, Liz went to Darian with the idea of adoption. She always was hesitant because she knew that going into the idea of adoption after finding out that they couldn't have their own children was not the best, but she didn't want to use adoption as a replacement for having children. She just wanted to finally give children a home, and she wanted to be that home. She wanted to be the loving household that her family was to her. So she went to Darian, and he felt the exact same way. So he agreed. So Liz looked into adoption and was then asked to take home a little baby girl. They accepted and gave her the name of Willow. And although Darian and Liz were on board to open their home and their hearts to these other children, little Ariel was not too thrilled. But it might be she just wanted to keep the room to herself, which, don't worry, I plan on changing the house shape to accommodate more children. It's fine. Every good bit of good news has a flip side to its coin. Soon after Willow was brought in, we got the call that Lexi, the matriarch of this family, had passed away. After the funeral, we came home to a mirage of birthdays. First as Willow, who we came to know was given up because she was hard of hearing, and then Ariel, who aged up into a bit of a loner, and now I see why she didn't want a new sibling in her room. But some good news, well, for the parents, maybe not so much for Ariel. Even with low fertility, somehow, maybe a blessing from her mothers, Liz was pregnant. Again. Or was it the llama? No, it was Liz. And this is where I'm like, oh, my mods are conflicting, but, don't get into it. That's fine. We found out that we were having another girl, and per Darian's heritage, chose the name Estrella. Sadly, Darian was off on a business trip, which caused Liz to have this baby on her own at the hospital. But don't worry. As soon as he got back, he made sure to jump right in and do as much as he could to make up for it. And that is where we stop the story. Make sure to like and subscribe, as I believe I'm updating this family every, first video of the month if I can finagle it. But I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope you enjoyed this format that I'm trying with this legacy challenge, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!